This video will be on rewriting data in a table from your database, and I've done this video already. However, unfortunately there was bad microphone quality, so I'm redoing this now. So it's a nice simple video, this one, going over just rewriting data. It's a nice simple command here, and this method I've got in here because I didn't have this last time. What this is a simple array to string method, and you can do this however you want. All it does is it concatenates the information into a string format from the columns and data, or values in this case. So all it does is it has the columns or the column in a square bracket, has an equal sign in between, and then quotations around the data value that you want to equal in that column, and it just concatenates this information. This is a very similar method to this. It's just a new way of doing it. In this, we write each column out and then values, and we're setting in to the values of these. In this, we're doing the column, value, one by one, all separated with commas, similar to this. So that's the only difference. You can copy this method down if you want, or you can make your own that does the same thing. So at the moment, we're going to go over rewriting data. So let me just remove. Actually, I can leave that in because it'll be the same method we're going to do. So first, you're going to want to make a public void that you can access, and you're going to call this one rewrite data if you want. So in this one, we're going to do a very similar method to the write data. So if you want, you can copy the same bits over. I'm just going to write them out again. So we're going to do a try catch statement, because we don't want it going wrong for the user as they're using it. We want to make a message box, and we're going to have this say fail to rewrite data. So if this goes wrong, hopefully it won't. So now we're going to establish a connection. So we're going to do con.open. Open a connection, not establish one. So once you've opened the connection, you can work on the command. So command.connection is equal to the con connection. So just con, because it is the connection. Now we're going to do command.command text, and we're just going to make that equal to blank at the moment with a $sign in front, so we can put information values in there. Now we're going to do com.execute non-query, and then close the connection. Okay, and that's it for this first bit. And oh no, not end. Execute, sorry, non-query. There we go, fixed. So now we can actually get to the point of actually rewriting the data here. So for this, we're going to want to have the command line, instead of insert into, as you do with writing data, we want to use a method of update. So start by writing update, and now we're going to do the exact same as before and do this. It finds the table and database, so the table inside the database. So we're going to want to have this as before. And now, slightly different from this one, we're going to use this new method of inputting data. So we're going to want to use the column name and then equals and then the value, still with quotations around the value, and this is what this method does again. So for this, we want to do set, so we're setting the values, and we're going to do array to update string. And what that will do is this method will just take all the values and have them equal, take all the columns and have that equal to the value in quotations. And again, that just defines each one. Don't forget to put the columns in square brackets and the value in quotations. So it's a slightly different way of doing this. And then we are going to do where. And this is where we can do a condition. So let's first start by having some values actually going into this method here. So we're first going to want a string of database as before, a string of table. We want a string array of columns and a a string array of values. Now, this is where it slightly differs from the write data. We're now going to want another string, and this string is going to be for the condition column. So the column that you want to have as the condition of a true false statement. So here you would have, let's say you wanted to change the value where the person's name is Jonathan. You'd want to do the condition column of name or full name of however you have it in your table, and then the condition value of Jonathan. And now you wouldn't normally do this in a table, because what if there's two people with the same name of Jonathan? Also, that's a single name, not a full name. So this is why we added IDs down here. So even if there's two people with the same name of James Markson or Iris Moore, they both have different ID values. So that means the condition column can be the ID, and the condition value can be the ID value of that person. So let's now do a string of condition column. No. There we go. And a string of condition value. Okay. So now we're going to do let's fill in this erased update string. Now we have the values, and we're going to do columns and values. There we go. And now we're going to do where, and this is where we're going to do our square brackets. So for columns, you always do square brackets around them. This is due to, you wouldn't normally have to if it's a single word column. However, if you've got full name, which is 2 words with a space in between, it won't recognize it unless you actually do this correctly. So here you're going to want to enter the condition column, and then you do an equal sign. So this is very similar to how you set the values. Actually, it's identical to how you set the values, sorry. Then you do your quotations, and then you do condition value. So this will change these columns to these values where this column is equal to that value is true. So it will iterate through the different ones and find it. So this should be it for the method now. So if we go to the main form, and then you write a method here, very similar to the write data. So let's do server, and now you want to find rewrite data, so you can change this just to these, or sorry, just the methods. And you're going to want to find rewrite data, or you can just write it. So rewrite data, and very similar to before, you want to do server.database, server.table, name, columns, and values. Now it's saying it's wrong, and that's because we still need the condition column and the condition value. Now for this, you won't have an array or anything like that. You'll just do them straight into here. So let's do it where the ID is equal to, and let's find who we want to change. So let's change Iris Moore's class to 2. So we're going to find Iris Moore, which is here. Her ID is 2. So let's now do her ID is equal to 2. And you've got to do this as a string, not as an integer. Even though it's an integer in the database, you're writing this as a string in a sense. So you're going to want to have this as a 2 as a string. So we want to change that value from 1 to 2. Now this is where you can change your columns array to have as many bits as you want, and your values to have as many bits as you want. So you can change her class ID and her name at the same time if you wanted, and we'll look at that in a second. So let's change first the class ID to 2. So let's say she changed classes. Let's go into here, refresh it, see it's still 1 at the moment. Now let's run our program. There we go, loads up. We can close that again. Now if you go to here, refresh this, her class ID is now as 2 for Iris Moore. Let's say Iris Moore changes her second name slightly, or let's say it was entered wrong. It was entered into the database wrong. We can now do, and you want to change her class ID at the same time, let's say. So we can now do full name, which is the column here, a full name, and you want to change that to, let's say, the value of Iris Watson instead of Iris Moore. Let's say you got the wrong person, but you still want to keep the same ID of the person himself. And let's also change the class ID to 1 again. So they change back again. And now if we run this, if all works out correctly, there you go, form loads up, you can close that again. Now if we go into our database, when we refresh it, we should notice Iris Moore changes to Iris Watson, and the class ID will change to 1. So let's refresh this, and we now have Iris Watson in class ID of 1 with the same actual student ID. So it's a nice simple video on doing rewriting. It's a very useful function to use, and it saves deleting a value and writing a new one into the database, because that's very inefficient. So that's it on this video. The next one we're going to go over deleting entries. So if you want to delete a certain entry instead of rewriting that to a certain bit. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much.